Welcome to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint from Zero to Hero, Module 3.2, deploying AV settings via MEM, or Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Initially, I will show how you can create a policy and then explore some of the key settings, and then how you can check the deployment status via MEM and exploring the endpoint side as well. Anyway, let's get ready and dive into it. Here I am on Microsoft Endpoint Manager. If you are new to this tool, just make sure you go open a new browser and go over endpoint.microsoft.com. Okay, this is the starting point. Of course, make sure you have the right credentials for that. Before dive straight into the policy, it's important for you to create a couple of groups. On my lab environment, I created at least two groups, one to represent all my servers 2012, 2016, and 2019, and then another group to represent my workstations, in this case Windows 10 and Windows 11. As you can see, here are the two groups. If I just dive into my Windows 10 and 11 group, I already assign two of my devices to that group, Windows 24 and Windows 1025. Yeah, anyway, the name really doesn't matter. Okay, and then these are my two VMs. I will target my policy to be affected over them. Anyway, that's the first thing. Make sure you have a couple of groups to represent the devices. Could be via version, via department, via location. It really doesn't matter. Anyway, now let's talk about the policy itself. To do that, go over endpoint security, click in there, and then here is the place where we can deploy AV policies, ASR, firewall, disk encryption, and so many other policies. The recording for today is all about antivirus, and then make sure just click in there, and then here is the starting point. If you never done any AV policy before, of course in your case it will be all kind of blank or empty. In my case, I've been already playing with some of the policies. To create a new policy, to be honest, the interface is not too complicated. Make sure you hit the Create Policy button, click in there, and then the first very important question here is for you to pick the right platform. As you can see, not overcomplicated, Windows 10, 11 and servers. And then Mac, we can actually deploy AV policies over Mac if they are running, if they have been onboarded on MDE. And then we have the option here as well as Config Manager, in this case Config Manager using Tenant Attach. In my case, I have my devices onboarded straight into Defender for Endpoint, and I will use just the kind of MEM to deploy that policy. Okay, click the right platform. Here there are three flavors. One of them is the antivirus. I don't want to call main a policy, but that's one of the most important, AV. And then we can create the exclusions as well. To be honest, it's possible to create the exclusions to exclude folders and processes not to be scanned. We can do that via the Defender AV policy, but Microsoft a few weeks ago, they added the antivirus exclusions as well. That's give you a bit of more flexibility in terms of adding devices and removing devices from those two different policies. And the third one, the Windows experience or the Windows security experience. This is all about, how much from the security experience you want to allow your users to see and to click around different buttons. A very important policy here is the temper protection, where we should actually enable. But anyway, let's go one step at a time, and I will show how to create the three policies with some of the key elements. If I click on Defender for Antivirus, very simple. Now just need to push the button Create. Of course, I need to provide a name, and then make sure you pick a good name enough, or a good enough name in order for you to remember what is the policy about. My case, I say we'll set as a AV for, I don't know, let's say IT devices. Okay, the name really doesn't matter. Click on Next. And then, to be honest, now is the time where we dive into the configuration. There are a few other bits we need to complete. If I want to assign a tag, if I want to decide what is the group I will assign this policy to, and then finally review the configuration and create. Anyway, here are all now the relevant, very important. Some of them are very important in terms of the policy creation. If you are new and if you are actually not too sure about allow archive scanning, the good thing is you can always position your mouse on top of that kind of exclamation mark to get some information. Some of them, the information is not that great, as in this case, just saying, oh yeah, I can enable, disable, that configuration. But some other more complex settings, if you, point, you can get a better information, okay? Again, I would advise, because that will represent how protected the endpoint they will be, I would advise to go kind of slow. If you're not too sure about each of the policy, just make sure point the policy and then pick the right configuration. Anyway, for me to buy a bit of time, I have a policy already created with a kind of good level of configuration, and I will show in 2 seconds. Anyway, let's say I have configured all the policy I need. I'm kind of, happy with the configuration. Don't worry, I will explore the options in a few seconds. And then just click next. Now you could set this policy, you could assign a tag for this policy. In my case, I don't want to do that. Finally, I click on next. And then eventually, now very important, if you just click next again, you are about to create a policy, but that policy won't be linked or won't affect any of your devices. There are a couple of options in here. You could say, oh yeah, this is my master policy, and I want to make sure every single user is affected by it. And then just select add all users or all devices. The advice would be for you to create different groups, and you have more flexibility. In this case, now I can click on add groups, and then finally pick whatever the group I want. In my case, I want to assign, for example, to my Windows 10, Windows 11, or based on the name I just gave to this policy. Here it will be more convenient to assign this policy to my IT group or finance group and so on. Anyway, here is a place where I would assign the policy. Of course, we can select multiple groups and then click on select. And now by the time I click on next, I can finally click on one more time on next, and then next to review the configuration, and then eventually create the policy. Okay, these are the steps if you are creating a policy from the scratch. It's going to take a little bit of time in order for me to create a policy, and then the policy must be pushed over the devices. To buy time, what I did already is the following. Let me just cancel this policy. Okay. And then if I go back to the interface, I have a policy I already created. I already set what I think are a good configuration. Feel free to pause the video and then maybe just check the configuration one by one and maybe test on your own lab as well. Anyway, let me go back to here, antivirus. And then as you can see from my first policy, just let me explore the configuration. Yeah, this is the one, AV policy for Windows 10. Okay, it's already assigned, it's ready to go. Let me just click and explore the configuration I already set for that policy. As you can see, it's already assigned and successfully deployed for 3 devices, but I will explore that later. Anyway, let's jump straight into the settings. That's kind of the most important for now. If you have a policy created and eventually you need to make some adjustments, as you can see, just click on the policy and then go over the configuration settings, click on edit. Here are the options now. Let's now explore some of the key elements in here. The first one is allow archive scanning. Yeah, 100%. I want to make sure every single file, including the archiving, are scanned. Second is allow behavior monitor. 100% I would say yes, make sure that is turned on for the MDE to kind of keep an eye how the device is performing, and eventually if there is an application or a particular day the device is not performing as the pattern supposed to be, you can get an alert from there. Allow cloud protection. 100% make sure that is allowed. Allow email scanning. Yeah, 100%. I would advise to have that as well. Now there are some configuration. I don't want to say my configuration is the best one and everybody should pick and follow what I have configured here. Of course, there is no right and wrong. You need to analyze one by one. If needed, explore some additional details with the networking team, with the security team, with the server teams and so on to find out what is the best profile for you. That one is a good example. Allow full scan on mapped network driver. Initially, we think, oh yeah, we should allow the scan. But then if you think, if you have 1,000 devices mapped to a particular drive on the server, and then you will have 1,000 devices scanning the same folder or the same file structure from a server, that could be overkill the server performance. In my case, I'm playing safe. I don't want I don't want to scan any mapped drive. Why? Because I have MDE on my servers and I'm running a daily scan on my servers. It means from the server side, I'm covered. The next one, allow full scan on removable drivers. Oops, that's a different story. Any external USB drive, any device like that, and then 100%. I want to allow in this case the removable drive to be scanned. Some other options like allow the intrusion protection. Yes, allow scanning on all download files. 100%. Allow real-time monitoring. Yes, I want to make sure that is enabled. The next one, allow scanning network files. I want to allow that. Allow scripting, scan scripting. 100% I want to allow that. Here another one, another two, interesting for you to think. Allow users to have access to the interface. If you want to allow them to navigate into the security interface. In my case, I decided not to allow to do that. Another one is, what's the kind of, the CPU utilization you want to allow MDE or Defender for Endpoint in this case to use on your device? Can be anything from the default is 50%. I decided to downgrade a little bit to avoid any performance problem from the kind of user point of view. I have downgraded to 40. Again, it's up to you to decide what's the best one. Check for signatures before running a scan. As I have configured, I will show in a few seconds, I want my system to be scanned every day, and then just to make sure when the scan is running under the latest AV definitions. This is why I decided to enable that setting. Cloud blocked level, another one here as well. I decided not to go too hard, but to have a good level is for the kind of Microsoft decision in terms of blocking what doesn't look like that good. If you want to keep a default state, high plus, or zero tolerance. Okay, I would advise you to make some tests and then eventually increase as you go, because if you go straight away to zero tolerance without testing your own application, you might get some, the MDE could be blocking too many things. Okay, I decided not to go too low, but high is a good level. Okay, I'm not going to read every single of them. Days to retain clean malware. This is related to the quarantine. Again, if you are early in the project, you are not too sure how much things MDE will block. Initially, it's a good idea to keep some blocked files into the quarantine. Eventually, if it's a false positive, it will give you the chance for you to go back and kind of bring the file back from the quarantine instead to bring from the backup. I decided to stick here with 15 days. Some companies I know, they play safe, they go to 30 days. Other companies, they keep only 5 days. Again, this depends on your own organization, how you want to do that. Then a couple of other settings here in regards to the enable network protection. That's a good idea. Again, I would advise you to test, but network protection will increase the chances for the users not to be affected by phishing or by some malicious websites. Basically, Microsoft rates websites out there, and if your end user eventually is redirected to access one of those bad sites, Microsoft will kill that straight away. When it comes to the exclusions, as quickly I mentioned before, it's possible for you to exclude a folder, extension, or a process from here. But in my case, to have more flexibility, I'm going to set up the exclusions from a different policy, and then it gives me more flexibility in terms of moving devices around. Otherwise, you could add the exclusions on the main policy. I will add that later. The next one, the PUI, that means if you want to allow or not, or if you want to block, the unwanted application. For example, in my case, I have enabled that. If any user try to install some dodgy files or dodgy applications like BitTorrent to do mass download, that definitely is not an enterprise application, and nobody should be using those software application in the organization. And then if you enable that, means the users, they won't be able to install those dodgy applications. Again, if you are a bit afraid MDE could be blocking too much things, initially you could set up as audit mode. Okay, audit mode, as the name suggests, will audit, will not block, but will audit. And then you can review the logs, find out if some of the applications that would be blocked are kind of, proper enterprise applications. If yes, and then you might need to do some exclusions. Okay, if you want to play safe, and then definitely I would advise to set that policy as on. Real-time scan direction, if you want to allow only for incoming files or outgoing. In this case, to have a better protection, I would advise to set as, the two ways. Scan parameter, again, there's a big discussion here in regards to scan, full scan, or quick scan. If Microsoft hasn't changed the advice, let's say if you are using the latest version, the MDE is fully onboarded, fully updated, and all the behavior monitor, everything is on, Microsoft says in these days is not needed for you to run a full scan every day. Okay, you could run maybe once a while, but otherwise there is no need for a full scan, anymore. In my case, following that guideline for Microsoft, I decided to run a quick scan once a day. Okay, every morning, every lunchtime around 1 o'clock, I will run a quick scan. As the name suggests, it doesn't go to every single file. It only scans the memory and key system files. That makes the whole scan quicker and still, a good level of protection. And then, of course, you can decide when that quick scan will run. Again, here there's a bit of information. If you set as 60, the number here as 60 means 60 minutes. The scan will run every day at 1 a.m. Most likely the user will be sleeping and the device would be powered off. This is why I decided to go for 780. If I have a good, if I did a good math, that is around 1 p.m. where, let's say my organization guys go for lunch, the device is powered on, and then the full scan, the quick scan will run. Again, you could decide to run that once a week. In my case, to kind of keep a good level, I decided to do every day. Okay, now the next one is very important as well, is from where are your devices getting the AV signature. Okay, the options here are, if you keep Microsoft Update Server, means internet. Okay, every single device on your organization will go after Microsoft Data Center and will download the updates from there. If your users are working from home, that will be a good option, but these are actually priority. In my case, and most of the enterprise organizations out there, they don't want to have 1,000 devices, 2,000 devices going straight to the internet to download the definitions. What we can do is to set as a internal definition update server. In this case, will be a WSUS, a local WSUS server, or a system center server that is pushing the devices from a central repository. But the good news is, if my user is working from home, and then of course the user unless there is a VPN, the user wouldn't be able to connect the WSUS server. No problem at all. This system will try to download from the local server. If the local server is not available, the second option is to download the updates from Microsoft. Okay, that's a good configuration, especially for enterprise organizations. Okay, next one, very important as well, is what's the frequency the devices are going to Microsoft or to the local server to download the vaccines or the AV updates. In my case, I didn't want to wait too much time. I'm setting here as 6 hours. It means every 6 hours, my device will talk to WSUS or the local server. If not available, go to Microsoft to get the updates. The next one is submit sample consent. Here the idea is, if Microsoft needs to send some files for deep analysis, if you want to play safe, you can set as a save sample. It means only files like exe files, .com files, VBS files, PowerShell script, and things like that. If you set as send all sample, and then can be absolutely anything, Word with macro files, Excel files, and so on, and then, based on the compliance policy, you might not want your device to send too much information to Microsoft, and then this is why the save sample could be a better option for you, okay? Have a look, and to get some more details on that. Next one, very important, disable local admin merge. I decided to disable. It means if any user with local admin try to make changes on the MDE configuration, like exclusions, scan frequency, updates frequency, any local configuration, I'm not allowing that. I want to make sure my policy coming from the MEM is the master copy, and as a peace of mind, I don't want anybody from a local level to make changes. That's an important configuration. Next one, you might make some changes, especially if you are early stage on the project, is allow access protection. In this case, sorry. I'm talking about now the remediation action for different levels. What I want to say is Microsoft has of course, built-in decision in terms of what to do when a severe threat happens. It means a severe threat will be straight away deleted and doesn't go to the quarantine, or it should go to the quarantine, then the user can recover and so on. Of course, Microsoft has specific actions for all of those levels. If you are, in an early stage of a project, in a kind of complex enough project, some administrators, they are kind of not too sure how much MDE could be blocking some, good application. And then what you could do is, when it comes to low severity, let's set as quarantine. When it comes to moderate severity, let's set as a quarantine as well. In high, let's set as a quarantine as well. And eventually, when it comes to kind of very severe threat, okay, then I'm really happy to basically remove the files and everything that is available in that package. Okay, what I'm doing that is to give a better chance. If a good application is blocked, it goes to the quarantine, and then at least it will, based on my configuration, stay there for 15 days. It means plenty of time for me to go there. If it's a good application, a tested application, and then I can basically retrieve from there. And then eventually, when you have all your system, you could make some better exclusions, and then when the time is right, you could come here and say, yeah, you know what, now I want to remove, I want to block, and so on. Okay, again, there is no right and wrong when it comes to the configuration. You need to make some tests and find out what is the best profile applicable for your organization, for your sort of application you are running. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let me save the configuration. And then eventually now, let me just, usually takes a couple of seconds. And then save one more time. Okay, now job done. Because I made a few changes, now it's going to take a while in order for my devices, to get those updates. Okay, let's keep moving. Now, if I go back to the policies, let me show, very important, how to configure the exclusions under the policy. Same story as quickly I told you before. You can click on the policy and then pick whatever is your platform, my case servers and Windows 10, and then eventually you select the antivirus exclusions. Okay, to buy a bit of time, I've done that already, and then as you can see, I have a policy in here. Click in there. Okay. Exclusions are a key, let's say, configuration factor when it comes to deploying MDE for two reasons. First, if you don't exclude some of the, let's say, your organization processes, they might be blocked by MDE, especially if you are talking about some old applications, some like legacy stuff. Microsoft could see that as a kind of, threat and then block and delete those applications. To avoid that, as you can see, very simple, when you go over the configuration, you can exclude any extension. You say, oh yeah, all files, I don't know, DAT or whatever, a particular file you could exclude. You could exclude a full path. In this case, if I go here, see data. That's, I need to say, please try to avoid that, because it means any file that is stored in C data are not going to be scanned. And if there is a big threat in there, or if a hacker managed to find out that any bad file upload or let's say download into the C data, MDE won't be able to delete. Okay, again, you need to see your application, but the tip here is, if you can avoid setting a full folder as exclusion, that's definitely is the best practice. Okay, and then here is the place, exclude processes. That's the right place to go, where you set the whole folder, the whole path. In my case, let's say on my kind of pretending story, I'm about to migrate my devices from Symantec antivirus to MDE, to Defender for Endpoint. To avoid Symantec and MDE to kind of fight to each other, what I'm doing is, from the MDE side, I'm excluding all the Symantec processes. And then I should do the same from the Symantec portal. I should exclude the MDE process as well. Okay, again, there are much more processes to be excluded. I just, took two of them to show you. Anyway, just make sure you add, let's say, minimum as possible, okay, because if you add too many things here, you are, setting your configuration to, you are kind of downgrading the level. Less is better. Anyway, that's a place. Now, if I click on save and then save again, okay, that's job done. Then a few seconds I will show how we can actually double check if this policy has been deployed or not. Anyway, and then the last one I want to show before I finish this quick video is about the Windows security experience. Okay, again, this is one of the types of policy you can create. In here, as the kind of the policy, suggest, the name suggests, is, let me just go to edit the settings, is, how much you want to allow your users to be kind of surfing and looking, for data into the security. As you can see in here, Windows Defender Security Center, how much you want to allow your user to explore from there. You can, for example, disable account protection, disable app browser, disable clear TPM button, disable device security, and so on. Okay, again, you need to decide if you want to allow the users to surf there or not. Very important, okay, very important is the first one, tamper protection. If you are not too familiar, if you are not too familiar with the tamper protection, this is a kind of additional layer you can set if eventually a hacker or a dodgy tool is trying to downgrade the security level, shut down the AV policy, make changes on the AV policy, stop the Defender for Endpoint service, anything that relates to downgrading the security level. Okay, we can block that straight away if the tamper protection is enabled. Okay, I would advise to enable that, to keep this setting as on, to avoid that task to be happening. And when it comes to the interface, the security center, this is pretty much up to you if you want to allow or not users, to surf and to get some information from there. Anyway, yeah, I haven't changed anything here. Let me cancel, and then it should be all good. Okay, that's pretty much the 3 important policies you should be deploying. Now, the next step is, okay, how can we monitor if the policies have been deployed successfully or not? Not too complicated. What you need to do is basically from MEM, and then I will show from the workstation point of view as well. Click on the policy itself. If you are kind of, new on MEM, yeah, please pay attention. If you have done other works on MEM, and then, it's a bit different. Yeah, for me, because I made some change on the configuration, right now the first policy hasn't been deployed yet. To buy a bit of time, what I can do now is I need to pause for a second, okay? Let me click on devices, and then let me force a synchronization to make sure my devices can get this policy as soon as possible, okay? Anyway, a bit of kind of, troubleshooting. Eventually the policy, I'm sure it will be deployed for the devices, but if you really don't want to wait too much, you can go to, as I said, over devices. Now click on all devices, and then when you see the devices, we can just click and then force a synchronization. Okay, yeah, now let me do that. Let me click on my device, Windows 10 24, click in there, and then I can click on when is available. Just click on sync to force a synchronization. Yeah, this is the magic button. Let me click in there, click on yes. Okay, same story. Let me go back to the devices again. Okay, the device 24, and let me go back to device 25. Let me do the same. Of course, there are other ways for you to force the synchronization as well, but anyway, I just wanted to show. Now let me sync, and then let me click on here as well. Okay, that's fine. Now I can go back to my endpoint security, and I might need to wait a few seconds, but let's see how things go. If I click again on antivirus, now let me go back to my policy, and here the Windows 10 AV policy, click in there, and then eventually, let's see. Yeah, is it still not available? Okay, let me pause the video just to buy a bit of time, and then I will come back when the policy is deployed. Okay, a few minutes have passed. Now let me check again the deployment status. If I go over my AV policy for Windows 10, let me click there, and then hopefully I can get a report. Okay, now at any moment I should be able to see, yeah, it looks good. The deployment seems okay. If I click on view reports, click in there, and then I should be able to see my Windows 10 24 and my Windows 10 25. Yeah, as you can see, the deployment has been completed with no errors. Okay, that's really great news altogether. Okay, and then of course I can just repeat the same procedure over those 2 additional policies. Now, before I go, let me check from the device, kind of from the endpoint side. In here, if you are looking to make sure the deployment is here, the best command I can share is get mp preference. Okay, mp preference. Yeah, if I hit, oops, sorry for the typo, get -mp, and then it's better to just hit tab, mp preference. Okay, hit enter. Yeah, there you go. Hopefully you will be able to remember some of the parameters. One of them is the signature failover order. Yeah, initially I want my devices to talk to my internal server, and then if the WSU server is not available, and then go and try to find the same from the internet. Here is, as I told you before, I wanted to have a quick scan running every day from 1 p.m. Okay, that's great. And then I want to keep the items into the quarantine for 15 days and so on. Yeah, anyway, all the parameters I have set from the policies, yeah, they are here. I could kind of, go over one by one, but yeah, they are here. Another quick way you can see as well is using regedit. If you're not too familiar with PowerShell, anyway, just another way, if you click on regedit, and then just make sure to go to local machine, software, and then policies, and then expand Windows, finally Windows Defender, and then finally the policy manager. And again, the configuration I have set is all here. Okay, one more time, the signature, okay, signature, the back, failover, okay, is in here. All the exclusions I've set, if you can remember, okay, from C, program files, Symantec is in here, real-time protection, okay, yeah, all the parameters are here, and no problem at all. Anyway, just the two ways from the client side we can check. And please remember, in order for you to deploy the configuration, deploy the policy, and check if the policy actually has been in place, you don't need to have the device already onboarded on MDE. Actually, it's better for you to first to deploy the policy to make sure all the configuration you need is here, and then as a second stage, you do the onboarding. Anyway, this is what I wanted to show from this module, deploying AV settings via MEM, or Microsoft Endpoint Manager. I hope you enjoy. If so, please give a quick like, subscribe my channel, and please get ready for the next module. Thanks for watching.